One of the most important concepts from the chemical reactions unit is learning how to balance chemical equations. So from this video, you're going to find out what is a chemical equation, you're going to find out what the purpose of a chemical equation is, what three things do chemical equations reveal, and then you're going to actually learn how to write and balance chemical equations in the next video. So a chemical equation is a symbolic representation of a chemical reaction. The purpose of a chemical equation is to support law of conservation of matter. So remember, law of conservation of matter and law of conservation of mass are the same thing. So law of conservation of mass says that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It reveals three things. The first thing it reveals are your reactants, which are the starting material. They're located on the left side of the chemical equation. The second thing it reveals are your products. They're the ending material, and they're located on the right side of the chemical equation. Then the third thing that it reveals are your mole ratios. So remember, a mole measures the amount of a substance, and your mole ratios in your chemical equations are going to be your coefficients. So the coefficients are going to be used to multiply the elements or the compounds. So in algebra, you use your coefficients to find the variable. You're going to do that same thing here. However, that variable that you're seeking to find are your coefficients. Coefficients are the only things that you can use in order to balance a chemical equation without breaking the laws or the rules for balancing chemical equations. So you need to know what symbols are actually used in chemical equations. So S represents the solid phase, L the liquid phase, G the gas phase, AQ represents an aqueous solution. So aqueous refers to water, so if something has an AQ symbol, it can be dissolved in water. So substances that dissolve in water represent the AQ. A plus sign, that's going to be used to separate the multiple reactants from the products. This is a yield sign. It represents the separation from the reactants and the products. And then you have a yield sign with a triangle on top or a yield sign with the word heat on top. This is going to indicate that heat is supplied or used in the reaction. So now, what are the steps for writing a balanced chemical equation? So you may not go through all these steps when you you may not go through all these steps after you get very good at writing and balancing chemical equations, but as a beginner, these are the steps that you should always go through until you see fit or I otherwise say so. So for step 1, you're going to identify the reactants and the products. For step 2, you're going to write the chemical formulas for each compound or symbols for each element. Step 3, you're going to place the reactants on the left side and products on the right side. Step 4, remember this is your ultimate goal, to produce the same number of reactants and products on both sides. So how are you going to do that? You're going to count the atoms of each element on both sides. So what you have on the left side should add up to be the same amount of what you have on the right side. So I'm going to give you 2 strategies that are going to help save you some time. As you get very good, like I said, at applying the concept of balancing chemical equations, you may not use either one of these concepts, but this saves you some time. So start with an element that only appears once on both sides. Usually this is never going to be hydrogen or oxygen. They should come last. So typically hydrogen and oxygen are going to be used more than one time of different compounds or as an element by itself on both sides of our chemical equation. So if you seek or you find another element that does not and it only appears once, that's the element you want to start by balancing the chemical equation with. So the second strategy is, under the problem, write down the symbols of the elements on both sides. So you should have the symbols of the reactants, you should have the symbols of the products, and then you're going to tally the amount of atoms on each side. So as you continue to balance the chemical equation, what you're going to do is keep account of how many atoms of each element you have on both sides of the chemical equation. So in the next video, you're going to get an opportunity to actually apply this information.